Okay.
Ring, 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 ring. Banana phone.
Ah,
Ah!
okay. That was weird.
Did everything blow up?
Guys, have I ever done a freaking recording where something didn't blow up?
That blowed up good. Okay, if there's smoke, dude, bail.
We're
All
here
right, this
talking
is
about the great career of Tiger Ali Singh, then?
yeah, we are. Tiger Ali Singh, the great Canadian
Super
wrestler.
Indian.
Yeah, we talk about our best memories. Personally, I loved his tag team with D'Lo.
Hmm
Yep.
Yep.
I
I
think
I thought his greatest match was that match he had on Heat with Goldust.
no, the best thing I seen him was when they were pumping the Raw house show at the Sky Dome on OTR, and he was a guest of Michael Landsberg's on Off the Record.
wow. I seem to
Yes.
remember something with Footlands.
Yep. Remember the gopher that he had that kept kissing his feet?
Yeah.
That was his gimmick. It's like, yeah, my feet are gross, but you're gonna kiss it because I'm rich.
Yeah, he got high in fiber. Alright, guys. April 1st was a while ago, so let's actually get into it. We are here to discuss the most controversially ended career of very influential and very, well, talented is an understatement in what he did for the industry, but not a lot of people are going to know about it because he's being erased. So we are discussing.
The moving
Chris-
blur.
You're fired.
No.
We're discussing Chris Benoit.
Yes.
For those wrestling fans know this, but on June 24, 2007, Chris Benoit, under dementia, had skipped out on work, skipped out on house shows and a pay-per-view, and strangled his wife as well as his youngest son, David, I believe it was. No, Daniel.
Yeah.
And then committed suicide the next day. It was a complete mess. The media outage of this. Steroids became a major topic, even though this was punch drunk syndrome. The WWE did a tribute show, which they later retracted, and then went to great lengths to completely erase Benoit from history. But it's a tough one for wrestling fans to swallow because you don't want to pay honor to, the man that committed the murder, but for what he did to the industry, it's hard to completely ignore. So with me, I have Kellen Nitro, as well as Ken the Redhead Bulldog, Striker, Esquire, and eventually, if we can get him back, Cal, who no longer wants a name because we keep making fun of him.
Yes. You mentioned Chris Benoit's erasure from history. I don't think anybody in pop culture in the last 100 years is attempting to be erased more from history than this guy has been because of his actions. Like, you look at some of the maniacal madmen of the 20th century. You look at guys, like
Manson and Gacy.
and Chapman and that stuff, and it's they're still got documentaries made on their lives and stuff like that. Whereas WWE, they are taking the giant eraser, and coming from a television background myself, this is costing a bundle of cash to edit this guy out of every single broadcast that they put on their, vintage collection or on their DVDs or whatever.
But do you think it would lose them a lot more money not to erase him out? To be linked to that image?
Good point. That's debatable.
I picture, like, the guy who had to. You guys ever saw Waterworld?
Yeah.
That guy.
Unfortunately.
Inside of the boat, who didn't see the light of day in like 6 years, who when the flame came, he's like, "Oh, thank God." I'm picturing him in front of Vegas, just tweaking all this stuff for like 8.5 years. He's like, "I've done it. I've finished. Now the entire library no longer has the F in the WWE logo. What do you mean you want me to redo everything?"
Well, it's not like this guy wasn't important. Like, here's one thing a lot of people don't remember. Benoit was the third longest reigning World Heavyweight Champion in history.
Yes. Yep, that's
So
a
this
fact.
was a major player. He had a big Canadian market.
Mhm.
So to go through all that work to erase him, it has to be for a purpose. So I think I don't agree with it, but I can see the business reason for doing it.
Oh yeah, the thing is, especially the pro wrestling industry, we've had to put up with scandal after scandal associated with steroids, associated with pulling wool over customers' eyes. You know, the whole wrestling is fake thing actually did a huge dent in it, and it took them almost a decade to recover.
Yeah.
And then you start talking about assaults and heart attacks and drug and cocaine deaths, and then murder-suicide's pretty much as big as that gets. I mean, it's a wonder. I would say it's a wonder it's recovering at all, but let's face it, it's not. It's slowly sinking and dying as an industry.
Well, what was the statistic? Something like, out of boxing, out of the last 20 years, only 2 people have died, whereas wrestling, out of the last 20 years, they've had 30 or 40.
That's right. That was an ESPN article, if I remember correctly. It was the 1991 WrestleMania versus the 1991 Super Bowl, to which every participant from both Super Bowl teams are still alive.
Yeah.
Whereas over a quarter of the, I think 51, it was like 16 out of 51, I might need correction on that, participants in WrestleMania that year have passed away to causes other than natural. Becomes 18 when you factor in Gorilla Monsoon and Lord Alfred Hayes.
Yeah.
The problem with that is, every other major sport, even boxing, UFC, has an off time. Wrestling, they go 52 straight weeks, which, to be honest, is not good for any athlete. They need to have that rest period.
Mm.
So, myself, I would, if they institute this, it'd be a fabulous idea. A 9-month wrestling season just for a certain wrestler. So let's say Cena wrestles 9 months, but other wrestlers have...
That's a 9-month nightmare. Rivaled only by the unwanted pregnancy.
Well, no, not even that. You can make your season essentially SummerSlam through WrestleMania, and then take 2 or 3 months off. And now WWE, if you're WWE, you are sitting on hours upon hours of content,
Yes.
in your libraries and that stuff. What's not to stop you getting a network on digital cable and on HD, and have the WWE network and show, I don't know, 3 months worth of best ofs to keep your product for
24/7.
Well, yeah, but not on the
You want
on-demand,
them to take
but
a break for 3 months
you know,
completely, and then
but-
show best of.
but what I'm saying is,
Make that this year and reviews look a whole lot better.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is that it would give the casual wrestling fan that wants to take a break, he can take a break, and then the diehard fans, they got a chance to. Other sports are doing it. NASCAR, they have a season from February to November, and then December, January, that's all they show is just best ofs.
I remember.
Well, do you think you'd get a better product altogether? The wrestlers are rested up. They don't have to be on the road every night. They can actually give it their all every single night they're out there.
Yep.
Every Raw, they gave it their all, instead of knowing, oh, hey, I have to be in Oklahoma next week. Oh,
Exactly.
I have to be in Medicine Hat, Alberta.
I
Yep.
seem to remember this topic actually coming up back at the brand extension. And the idea, at least the idea that I pitched, was instead of having an off season, actually rotate these guys to have regular time off. So, say Cena operates, say, August to May.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Orton work, say, November until June, so that they overlap.
Yeah.
And have some people pop in and out over the course of the stronger, weaker periods. But I mean, this isn't a new conversation. It's
No.
What makes me want to pay $67 or $85 to go see the show when I'm only getting one of Cena and Orton, or one of these guys?
Well, maybe you'll luck out and some new people get pushed to the top. Maybe, that's what it takes to get CM Punk up there. Maybe that's what Zack Ryder needs.
Well, wasn't that the idea of SmackDown in the first place? Before this draft?
No. Wasn't that the idea of ECW in the first place before they scrapped it? To bring back the old brand as a third brand, to have your younger guys develop.
The WWE's ECW.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
what I'm trying to say.
Both counts. The entire point was to skip the first 2 steps and move immediately to profit.
Yeah.
Step 1, nothing. Step 2, nothing. Step 3, money.
There you go.
So
Duke
here's
Nukem
an interesting
forever.
question then.
It's the
Are all
Duke Nukem
these-
Forever rule.
Are all these deaths linked to no off season, or are they linked to the steroids? Because if it's a no off season thing, that could be a loophole they can use against this wellness policy.
It might be.
It's not the steroids,
bit
it's the
of
fact
both.
they're
It's
wrestling interviews.
something anyone can make an argument over. The reason why they have to take so many painkillers, the reason why they have to take so many steroids, and the reason they have such large, activity in the illegal and prescription drug world is
Yeah.
because they don't have time to rest and properly heal.
It might be a mixture of all above. I mean, like, it's right now the pro wrestling industry right now is fighting about the same issue that the rock music industry was fighting in the 1960s and 70s with the outside influence of drugs and stuff on its product. You know, you have huge stars like Hendrix and Joplin and that stuff all of a sudden commit suicides or die from overdoses and stuff like that. You know, it's definitely going to be detrimental to your industry when you're losing your top stars to that, demise, I guess.
Suddenly, I really miss Eddie Guerrero. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, Benoit. This wasn't.
He's the star of the show.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things. Sadly, this topic can and will be talked to death by people who, and this is no knock, but 100% knock on all of us. People who think we know what we're talking about. Because, I mean, you'll have any type of pundit, you'll have any type of writer, and any type of fan, and it's, everybody has, will have an opinion and varying on this, but what I wanted to discuss since the anniversary was coming up, not so much the murder and the death, as much as the life, the career, and the legacy that he did leave that can't be erased.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're all from Alberta here. Except Ken. We don't quite know where he's from. He just kind of showed up.
He's from parts unknown.
Hulk Hogan.
Do you know the Warrior?
Yeah, he owes me a few dollars.
Oh wow. I'd be trying to get those back from him here because if that shoot interview goes through on Hogan, he's going to get a few dollars in his pocket. But anyway.
Isn't it kind of funny that Twitter is more exciting than Raw these days?
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you, CM Punk.
Yeah.
If it was TNA, they'd use the storylines by now.
Yeah.
Oh, something happened on Twitter.
So,
Let's use it.
My question for everybody here, your early, like the farthest back you remember, the earliest introduction to Benoit you remember,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe followed up with perhaps the standout moment for you when you were hooked and sold on the guy.
Myself, I noticed Benoit when I was watching WCW, and he was a member of the Four Horsemen at the time. He didn't have a lot of character depth to him then. He just wrestled, and that was about it. Didn't really notice him until I fell in love with his match at Royal Rumble 03 with Kurt Angle. I just think that's one of the best matches I've ever seen. Also, the ladder match with Jericho at 01 is another match that's just high on my card. He pretty much could have a match with anyone, and he brings out the best technical skills in opponents that are lacking sometimes.
Yeah, I first noticed him in the Four Horsemen. I was like, holy cow, this guy is from Edmonton, and that would be cool if he won the title and put Edmonton on the map. I thought if this guy won the title, that would be it, just like Calgary had the Hitman. And when I was first really sold on him, I remember a match, I don't know the date, but this was the match where Triple H blew out his leg. It was Y2J and Chris Benoit versus
The power
Triple
trip.
H. Yeah, and who was Triple H with? Was it Shawn Michaels?
No, it's Austin. Austin.
Yeah, and that's the match where he got hit from behind and tore his leg. I remember that. They won the titles, and, well, to a lesser extent, it was as if the Oilers won the Stanley Cup for me. I was like, wow, this guy's putting Edmonton on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I think about he came really close, I think it was a year later when Edmonton came for SmackDown. And keep this in mind, growing up, I was a Stone Cold fan, the biggest Stone Cold fan. But when he came to Edmonton and he was wrestling against Stone Cold, oh, I have never cheered against Stone Cold so much in my life.
Actually,
And that whole Coliseum was against Stone Cold.
I have that match on VHS, and it's actually one of my favorite matches to flip back and watch. It's the whole. I think it was what was it? Was it a singles match between Benoit and Austin?
Yeah,
on
and
that
that's when
card.
Austin was on Vince McMahon's side.
Yeah, exactly. One of my top 10 favorite matches I have in my library. right now and that stuff.
Oh,
But
it was great, and
Yeah.
that was it was suspenseful. And I remember when Austin screwed over Benoit in that match and won. We all walked outside of the parking lot, and you can hear dozens upon dozens of people chanting "Stone Cold sucks,"
Yeah.
and you wait your whole life for Stone Cold to come to your hometown, and when he does, you're chanting "Stone Cold sucks."
I
they
remember
buried your guy.
at that house show. They were alternating this house show. I might be thinking of the wrong period of time because I have both memories of Benoit against Brock Lesnar and Benoit against Austin. But I remember how much we were actually convinced and sold that Benoit was actually going to beat someone that was unbeatable. And everyone had accepted Austin was unbeatable.
Yeah.
You know, he cannot be beat. He had to have, two 7-foot monsters pretty much tie in order to beat him. It just, he was untouchable. Even
Yeah.
a heel, no matter what they did, couldn't get past him.
Yeah.
For me, honestly, this is sad. My first memory of Benoit was actually one of not one of the higher points in WCW, not one of the higher points of his career. I only had begun watching WCW because Worldwide was on Saturday afternoons.
Okay.
And I saw a lot of Harlem Heat tag matches.
Were they doing the rotating ring gimmick at the time, or were they doing the static ring in
They
Universal
were
Studios gimmick?
static at that point. But it was Booker T versus Chris Benoit for the television title. That was the first Benoit match I watched. But, I mean, it didn't stick with me. I thought he was just another guy. It wasn't until the Radicals.
When he first debuted in the WWE.
That was when it's like I started going back and finding his other matches. I believe there was a Japan match between him and Owen Hart a long time ago, and there was a CW match with him and Brett, the Owen tribute in '99.
Yeah.
But it was the Radicals that stuck out for me. And the funny thing was, I was all about Guerrero and Saturn.
Before he became a chicken?
Before he became a chicken. Before Perry Saturn managed a better romantic life than me with a mop.
He dumped Melina for that mop. What are you talking about?
Well, it was Terry, actually, but yeah, no, yeah.
Terry Reynolds.
Terry Reynolds. I don't know. If choosing between a cougar and a mop,
Probably a little bit more clean.
Yeah.
Except it leaves you with some nasty splinters.
Kind of like a cougar. Kind of like a cougar.
Oh man. Benoit for me, the first time I was pretty much I seen him first on TV was again the WCW days, '96, warring with the NWO during the Horseman versus NWO gimmick that was starting to develop. That ended up finishing. It might have been '96, maybe '97. I would say when I think it actually was '97 when Kurt Hennig joined the Horseman, and that led to the Fall Brawl matchup in War Games where Ric Flair ended up getting his head bashed in by the door, and it was a Hennig heel turn and him joining the NWO. But there's this guy on the Horseman, Chris Benoit, and I'm like, dude, we're this grappler, long tights, stuff like that, and it's like, okay, cool. And then they announced him from Edmonton, Alberta. I was like, whoa. WCW has more Canadians on its roster at this time than WWF does, and it's like, that's not possible. And then I started asking some friends around that stuff, and they're like, oh, he's from Edmonton. He trained with the Hearts and stuff like that in Calgary. That blew my mind. I was like, here's a guy who trained with the Hart family that wasn't wrestling in the WWF at the time. I'm like, what? It's crazy, but my favorite, I guess, memory of him and one that I'll always have of him was '04, the run from WrestleMania onto Backlash in '04, and a pretty interesting story is that I was going to school at the time here in Edmonton, in downtown Edmonton, working on upgrading some high school marks and that stuff to get into my television major at NAIT.
That
And
was back when Nitro and I would go and hang out in the morning, then go to our classes, and then go back to the north side and get drunk at Londonderry Mall.
yeah,
How old were you guys? I was like 16 during this time.
Yeah,
18, 19.
Yeah. I was in 11th grade. I remember that.
18, 19.
I've got
So,
plenty of personal
I was
stories.
not drinking in the 11th grade.
but anyways,
At least up to
Disclaimer.
anyone professional who's listening to this podcast.
yes.
I've got enough blackmail on Cal to last me into my 70s.
I'm done with this podcast. Good night.
Anyway, the the deal with that was going into Mania that year. You know, Benoit's going for the title. I'm like, okay, I hope he gets it. Hope he gets it. And the match that he had with Michaels and Triple H at Mania that year blew my mind. It was fantastic. And then the fact that he won the main event. The big thing for me was that whole the build up from Mania to Backlash. And but anyway, when Backlash came to town, they were going to give Benoit a key to the city. I'm not sure if all you guys remember that or not. And I couldn't miss this. I cut class that day, pretty much skipped class for the rest of the day to head down to City Hall to go talk to, or go hang out with a friend of mine, who sadly is no longer with us, but meet him there and sit down and watch this thing, right? So I decided, because the weather was, let's say, less than perfect. It was one of those typical Edmonton spring days where if it's not raining, it's snowing. I decided, instead of taking the long way around, which would involve...
Mind you, for those listening outside of Edmonton, this is April and it's snowing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Give you some context.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're not yet ready to put away the snow tires and shop.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But so I'm contemplating to myself, do I want to cut through... There's a mall that was between where I was and the City Hall. And so I'm thinking, do I want to cut through the indoors of the mall and stay dry, or do I want to walk around the outside of the mall and go in? So I figured, well, I'll cut through the inside of the mall. So I cut through the inside of the mall, and at the end of this mall, one of the broadcasters in our city, CBC, has a television station. And I'm going past there, and then all of a sudden I see this dude with this big shiny gold belt, and I'm like, geez, that's an awful good replica of the World Heavyweight title belt. I look, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's Chris freaking Benoit. Oh my. You know, it's like, just freaking out in my mind.
For purposes, I actually sincerely doubt you said, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah, I know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but no, anyway, I was just like, whoa, you know? And so I just stood off to the side with a couple other guys there that were just kind of hanging off to the side, and I said, yo, is that Chris Benoit? And they're like, yeah, we're going to get some stuff signed by him. And I was like, awesome. I had a old Stampede Wrestling VHS tape that was in my back pack that I was going to get autographed. And so I pulled it out and just kind of waited for us for him to kind of wave us over. And he waved us over, and he talked to each one of us for a couple of minutes and that stuff. He asked me where I was, and or where I grew up and that stuff. And I said, well, I'm from Edmonton. He's like, oh yeah, which end of the city? I was like, well, North End, Londonderry. He's like, oh, do you go to O'Leary? And I'm like, no, I went to ME. And he's like, oh, ME, okay. My folks didn't want me going to a public school, so that's why I went to a Catholic school. So I was like, okay, well, you know, ha, joke around and that stuff. And
Whatever deals your crippler.
yeah, exactly. So then we went over, made my way over, met my buddy, and sat down and watched the entire ceremony at City Hall. And, you know, got my face on TV and that stuff, cheering when they were making the speech with him and that stuff. And the entire congregation at City Hall just stood up and gave him a standing ovation when they gave him the key to the city and everything like that. Little did I know that those images and that stuff would be used 3 years later when they were talking about the murder-suicide of myself and my buddy and everybody else in attendance standing up and clapping. I thought that was a real low move by, I'm not going to mention which television station it was, but just a real low move. And now, after being in the business a few years, I realized that, well, that's the way news is, and sometimes they cut it that way, but no, I was not impressed. We'll put it that way when the news broke.
It's not completely relating to Benoit, but I know that reporter bias has bitten people on this site before. Cal can attest to this. Back in 2006,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sometimes they do cut it the way they want to cut it, and sometimes they can appear really tasteless. But
That's
Yeah.
funny because that's exactly what went through my head right now when I was listening to that story.
Yeah, yeah,
They take
yeah.
what they want out of your interview and they spin it the way. If they want to make you sound helpless, they'll make you sound helpless.
Oh, yeah,
If they
yeah.
make you sound
and it was
Yeah.
a shame because Cal and his entire family, you know, they were, you know, absolute freaking warriors and heroes doing what they were doing, and
Mm-hmm.
they decided to make them look, you know, more terrified.
than
Jeez.
anything. Like,
Yeah.
you know, feel sorry for us, case.
Yeah, no, that's the media does it, and it's a sad thing that they do it, but that's the glorification of news now. Now it's getting worse because now we got you know, the Sun Media television network now, which is Fox News Canada. Ooh, you know, it's just it's getting worse and worse. But anyway, Chris Benoit, let's discuss more about this, boys. I guess my question would be to the panel: what was your feeling when you heard the news? Like, where were you, and these about what happened on that day in 2007? Like, you know, what was your feelings? What was your opinions?
Well, myself, at first, I was at home when I got the news. I was following the dirt sheets online, and it popped up. I'm like, I can't believe this. So I turned on Raw, and I was actually really emotional about it. You know, details later came on throughout the broadcast. I was trying, like, me and my friends were figuring out, oh, could it be, you know, wrestler on wrestler murder? Could it be something like that? But as details came out, it became clear that, oh, crap. You know, I lost respect for a little bit, but, you know, I'm at the point with Benoit where I respect the talent, I respect the wrestler. Regarding the individual, I just can't respect him anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was in university. I was in class. I had a morning class. It was in spring. And I went to my friend's house. I remember I was on a bus going to Capilano, and I got a call from my friend. And I think that was the same day we had SmackDown coming. It was either SmackDown or Raw. And my friend calls me, and he's like, hey, SmackDown's canceled. And I'm like, why? Why is it canceled? He's like, did you hear? Benoit got murdered. And that's all we heard from it. Benoit got murdered. Nothing else. And I remember they went and did a whole special, a 3-hour special for that episode that was canceled on Benoit.
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, Vince McMahon comes out and says, we will never mention his name again.
Yeah.
But when I heard it, I did not know what to think. I thought, wow, he got murdered? That's weird. I went home, researched it, and the funniest part, I don't know if you guys all heard about this, but it was leaked on Wikipedia 2 hours before the police report came out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was actually, I thought it was the night before. Somebody had actually changed it and said that he was found dead, and then they changed it back because there was no source. You can actually still find that edit and that revert.
And it was linked back to Connecticut.
Yeah.
When they found the IP address, it was Connecticut, the headquarters of the WWE.
Wow. That's spooky. That's spooky.
I gotta make that clear. Not the headquarters of the WWE. They linked it to Connecticut.
To Connecticut, yeah.
Which has the headquarters of WWE.
Yeah.
It
I don't want the listeners to get the wrong idea.
Yeah. No. Yeah, exactly. No.
I
Just
remember they actually it had gotten out on the news the person that they did eventually, you know, link back the IP address, and the police actually questioned the person who posted it. That was quite the freaking shock.
yeah, no kidding. I
But,
can only imagine. But no, the big thing for me was I was hanging around at home that day. I was kind of in between school and just trying to figure out what to do with myself for that summer and that stuff. I had been employed with the family doing some things and stuff, and it was an off day, so I was just kind of hanging out and that stuff. And the only thing really planned on my mind was that our local football club, the Edmonton Eskimo Football Club, was having a season ticket drive the same day where they brought all the players to the stadium and pretty much opened the doors for the stadium and that stuff, and there was an autograph session and stuff like that. So myself and my dad were going to go down to the stadium that day and get some autographs, and you know, talk up the team and stuff like that, and just kind of hang out and kind of get a feel for what that season's team would look like and that stuff. I'm essentially getting ready to head out the door, and then I figure, well, I got 5 minutes. Let me just check my email and stuff like that. And then I get an email from a friend of mine saying, "Yo, here's a link that you might be interested in. Benoit's murdered." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I'm like, so I click on the link, and it was weird at the time. There was so much stuff going around and everything like that the initial story I seen, it wasn't from Raja or No DQ or something like that. I think it was, actually, I think it was, believe it or not, and this is partly the reason why I hate Bill Apter, is just because of the non-truthfulness of his reporting on his OneWrestling.com site back in the day and that stuff. Mm-hmm. But they had initially announced that Benoit and his family were killed in a car wreck in Georgia. And I took that as the original news, and I was like, oh, geez, that's terrible and awful and that stuff. And so that's what I'm thinking heading out of the house, right? And it was hard because he's like, okay, well, there goes, at the time, my favorite guy going out like that, and then I got a slap on a face because I'm going out into public to hang out with friends and stuff like that at a giant public event at the stadium, right? And it's like, this sucks. But and so I do that, and then I get back to the house and plug in the tape delay of the what was it, the tribute show that night that they showed on Raw, and I'm sitting down watching it, and during one of the breaks on the tape delay, I'm going through the internet again and just trying to read up more on it and that stuff, and then finding out that they've changed the story from what I heard, the story has changed from a possible car accident to a double murder suicide. Or what was it, a murder double suicide, wasn't it?
It was double murder suicide.
Double murder suicide, right? Yeah. So it just was mind-boggling. Just absolutely, it was tough. It was awful. And then yeah, the worst part about it was people coming up to me when I came back for the fall semester and that stuff, because knowing that I was a hardcore wrestling fan, I was doing the radio show at the time, the Nitroholics Anonymous radio show, pretty much pumping local wrestling events and that stuff in the area the semester before. And people coming up to me and essentially, I don't want to say discrediting what I was saying because I was a wrestling fan and that stuff, but, ripping into me that happened. Especially the UFC guys. For whatever reason, the UFC guys just decided to open up on us wrestling fans at the same time, if you remember. And yeah, it was bad. Really bad.
Yeah, that was one of the problems with being in the internet community, was especially the forums that we frequented, is the UFC guys and the mixed martial arts guys, they weren't particularly tasteful in when they chose to hit you.
No.
They hit you when you're down.
Yeah.
And for me, I had just started a job with what was then, the largest, most important company I'd worked for.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually, that was the day of my 1 month probationary vote, where at 30 days and at 90 days, they actually voted on whether or not to keep me, the managers. And it was a 2-2 split, so they chose to keep me. Yeah, that was fun. We were listening to a local radio station, and I think I was just working on one of the customers' bills when the DJ had said the news. And what he had actually told us was that Chris Benoit, his wife Nancy, and son were shot dead. So we heard that their gun was involved. When it's something that big and that quick, you hear dozens of stories.
Mm.
And I think even Nitro and I might have been texting around that time. And at some point, I remember asking him, "Do you think Kevin Sullivan did this?" Because they had a real
Nancy Benoit.
Yeah.
I
remember discussing that with my friend too. We're like, well, Kevin Sullivan and Benoit have never been at friends at all since the Nancy Benoit thing.
Yeah.
So it is possible.
Yeah.
So.
And then you figure 2 and 2 lead together and that stuff. And I was thinking at the time maybe because of the mixed, like I said, I'm completely away at the computer at that point. I'm at a completely public function with a completely different industry at that time and that stuff, and so I have no access to a computer or TV or anything, so I have no idea what's going on. So I'm taking people's words as they come across, either text message or whatever. But yeah, no, it was a really weird deal, just just throughout. And yeah, I was one of the few that thought, well, maybe Sullivan had something to do with it, because they both. I was thinking at the time, I was like, okay, Sullivan was WCW for a while. He was one of the higher ups in the company. He may still be living in the Atlanta area or close to, where they are. And
One of the things is, he was a booker,
yeah,
right? And he had actually booked the angle with Benoit stealing Nancy from Kevin Sullivan, and in the end, she left Kevin Sullivan in real life and married Benoit.
yeah,
I remember that night. I actually kept running back and forth between the kitchen and the staff room to catch the Raw tribute.
mm-hmm.
And I think the first one that I actually managed to catch was Edge. But that was the Raw that was supposed to be Who Killed Vince McMahon.
Yes.
And that was supposed to be the 3-hour special. And
that whole hokey gimmick of he walks into the limo and then it detonates and that stuff.
It was to appease the people. It's like, hey, Sopranos fans, are you mad? Well, come here. We'll give you something to be really mad about.
Exactly.
Because, that was the series finale. It was, I think, like 4 days prior.
Now, was it to appease or was it a shot at Sopranos fans?
I thought it was to try to grab those ones that just wanted some sort of finish.
Mm.
Yeah, by the time I got home, I finished work at 11 p.m. those nights, so I get home about 12:30, because I take the long way home, the bus. And I got home, and then I start hearing, that Benoit himself might have been the perpetrator, might have been the murderer in this, and I spent the next several days pretty much just trying to find anything to possibly prove that Benoit wasn't a killer.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he was very influential on us, and we'll get on to that pretty much.
I think we all did that. We all did that. We read, we studied, we
it
tried
wasn't
to
even
convince people.
Yeah, I had
even
friends.
Disbelief, like, no, it can't be true. It was like, no, we're gonna find out who really did it.
Yeah. Honestly, other than the death of the Macho Man, has any other death impacted you that much? Any other
I can say yes. Actually, two for me.
Yeah.
The death of Eddie Guerrero had me pretty much stuck in the house for 4 days.
I agree.
And the death of Chris Candido had me never set foot in a wrestling ring again.
Owen Hart for me. That's a hard one for me to take. Still. And
Imagine Brian Pillman for you.
Well, yes, in the wrestling sense too. And then I'm also a huge auto racing fan, so there were a couple of auto racing drivers that when they passed away, it really hit me hard as well. But this is probably between those two. It just it's.
And then for myself, it'd be Owen, Eddie, and Kurt. So Kurt Hennig. So
yeah.
See, the only reason I can't put Owen, Pillman, or Kurt up there, or even Davey Boy, is I was too young at that point to really realize how much it would impact me. I mean, I was 13 when Owen died, right? And the thing is, geez, when you're a teenager, you know what happens. Everything that affects you major.
Yeah.
But I changed, Eddie Guerrero, he got me off alcohol. At least for a good chunk of time. Then that job that I thought was a dream job put me right back on it.
Yeah.
And people don't see that. They just see wrestling. They're like, oh, it's fake. You actually watch that stuff? They don't get that you've been raised on it. You've been watching it since you came out of diapers. These guys were your heroes.
Yeah, these are guys that you've looked up to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They busted their asses. They worked 330 days a year to put on a show and entertain people and make you empathize with them or love them or hate them.
And they're still not respected by their the company employer. So
or mainstream society at that.
Yeah, mainstream society won't even look at them as entertainers. They look at them as carnival folk.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing. So, you guys, we spoke about some of our favorite matches with Benoit earlier. I guess we can lead in and just say if you had to pick 3 matches, and this is for all of us. free matches that would go on a best of DVD of just his ring work. If we were trying to show somebody who from this generation who is say he's a fan of just today's WWE product and has no idea who Chris Benoit is, which free matches would you show them?
For myself, number one would be his WCW match with Bret Hart.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Number two would be
$26.99.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Number two would be his match at Royal Rumble 01 with Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
And number three would be probably his match with Kurt Angle at Royal Rumble 04, which is still by far my favorite match of all time.
Cal?
I gotta agree with the Kurt Angle match from
Mhm.
Royal Rumble. Incredible. I also gotta say the Y2J Chris Benoit match, the tag team one, against Triple H and Austin. And then, of course, maybe not his best match, but the most meaningful, most impactful has to be the WrestleMania 21. When
Right.
he won that, the confetti came out, Eddie Guerrero came out. Just, yeah, I have to say that one on the best of series.
Yep.
Personally, I would take actually the triple threat match with Triple H and Michaels at Bad Blood instead of Mania. I thought that
Backlash.
was actually
Backlash?
Backlash, yeah.
Backlash. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just found that was a better match. You know, that one. The fact that you actually had, I believe it was Michaels was about ready to tap, and Triple H actually grabs his hand to
Yep.
stop him tapping.
I love the psychology in that match. That was fantastic.
Phenomenal.
And when that match went off the air for the fans in Edmonton,
Yep.
Triple H started insulting Edmonton and the hockey team and everything.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool of Triple H. He let Benoit put him in the crippler and tapped out again.
Yeah, and
Nice.
yeah, I remember that sitting up in the nosebleeds in the gallery of the Edmonton Coliseum at the time. No, I think it was the Skyreach Center. It was
Skyreach.
Skyreach Center. Yep, and sitting up at in the nosebleeds there watching that. That was cool.
But the one point in that match when Shawn Michaels was putting in the sharpshooter and looking to the entranceway for a new referee, I was like, don't do that.
I think the entire crowd. I remember that just being one of those like moments of the entire house. Yeah, so I'd for my top three, I'd put that.
I don't get my other.
Oh, go for it! No, definitely. I thought you were talking.
Freak versus Nitro. Yeah, I was done talking at one. It's tough because I'm trying to think of my three, and they're all triple threat matches. I would put honorable mention to that Malenko and match, that last one they had at ECW, but for me it was all triple threat matches with Benoit.
Yeah.
He was fantastic working with two people. Chris Jericho and Steve Austin for the world title back in the brand extension days.
Yeah.
Back when Austin was heel.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, I'd have to say his first legit championship in the WWE back again at WrestleMania. Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle
In the
two falls triple threat match.
That's a good match, too.
yeah, in the one of the weirdest triple threat rules match ever contested, whereas there was 3 titles on the line in that match, and there was. Or no, it was,
3 titles, 2 falls.
Yeah.
Angle had 2 belts and lost them both without being defeated.
that's right. Yeah, so it was 2 titles, but yeah, there was 1 fall for the European and 1 fall for the Intercontinental title, if I remember correctly.
Into like one of the best just mid-card rivalries between Benoit and Jericho, swapping belts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we're forgetting. What about that ladder match at Royal Rumble? Benoit and Chris Jericho.
I'll
Yeah.
never forget the Lion Tamer on Benoit on top of the ladder.
Oh
Yeah.
God, that was awesome.
Ken didn't forget it. He was talking about it. It's the Royal Rumble 01 match. That was that was the curtain jerk for Royal Rumble 01, if I remember correctly. If you pop in the DVD from the box set, that's the first match you see. So it's quite the pace setter for that program.
Your 3.
My 3. I'd have to say the Backlash match, because I was personally in attendance for that one's number 1. And so I got to see him up close do his thing. And that was a lot of fun to see. Number 2, I want to say it's not really a match that was involving him as a wrestler per se, but it was another Edmonton moment that I was able to see in person was the Raw in 2002 where there was the ladder match between Rob Van Dam and Eddie Guerrero. Does anybody remember that one?
Oh yeah.
Great match.
Yep. That was the one that was interrupted by the idiot in the Oilers jersey jumping over the barricade and knocking the ladder down halfway
that
through.
was the one where
Now I remember.
that was back when Tommy Dreamer had the gimmick of just eating stuff.
Mhm.
Undertaker made him drink chewing tobacco.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, but no, Benoit had the whole deal with him was he had shown up at the beginning of the night and what was it? Ric Flair, who was the GM at the time, told him to leave. He was SmackDown property, and then out from his pocket comes a ticket. And
Yeah.
Benoit had bought a ticket for the show, and he had it wasn't a ringside seat; it was off in a gallery somewhere. And so the entire show there was just like Benoit, and then 4 seats of red shirt security all around him. It was like a presidential party or
That must have
something.
been 2002.
Yeah. And
That's the incredible thing about doing these podcasts. You forget about these moments, and
Yeah.
then you start talking about them, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." When you first said that match, I had no idea what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And you said the Oiler, the Oiler fan running in, and the ticket, and I'm like, "Yeah, I
yeah,
remember that."
remember that? Yeah, big time.
You know where I watched the whole event?
Where?
McDonald's. I was working there.
Oh,
I turned it on the public TVs because we had some public TVs where they just always showed Disney movies.
yeah.
And I put on Ross.
Nice.
Not bad at all.
Right on. Cool stuff. No, that was number 2. And number 3 for myself was I'd have to say was one of the matches from the Hard Knocks Chris Benoit story DVD set. It's the match with Jushin Thunder Liger when he was Pegasus Kid in Japan.
Wow.
Yeah,
We're talking
1990.
back in the actual actual UWF WWF light heavyweight title days.
Yeah.
I love those days.
And those are fantastic matches just because, it's a legit tournament. And the Japanese build these tournaments, whether it's for MMA or pro wrestling or kickboxing, to be the second coming of you-know-who. Like, it's like you have to be there because the real, nya is going down. That's why. So
Whether they're going from the king of the death match or the best technical wrestler, those tournaments never ever disappointed. They won't even set someone who can't do a proper armbar. They won't let him in the building.
no.
Let alone wrestle a match.
Like, these guys are best of the best. So
And the thing is, there were just so many. 3 isn't enough. If we could all pick 10, it wouldn't be enough.
no, exactly.
There was when they reactivated the tag titles on SmackDown, and he had to team with Kurt Angle
Ooh,
against
awkward.
Los Guerreros. There was we didn't even
feud with
talk.
Ryan
We haven't
I thought
even
great.
touched WCW.
That's
man.
No, that's the
Barely.
thing. The best of 7 with Booker T and WCW. The
Yeah.
His match against Sid Vicious, which actually showcased Sid Vicious pretty well.
and then there was that match in WCW with Kevin Sullivan that was at the Great American Bash in '96. Was Falls Count Anywhere, and that was the first time I've ever seen 2 wrestlers utilize the ladies' washroom as the spot in a match.
Al Snow was taking notes.
There's
You know what
ECW
was,
with Sabu,
Yeah.
Oh, Sabu and the broken neck.
Ugh.
And what was beautiful back then was working up the ranks. I remember I saw Benoit. This guy's from Edmonton.
Yeah.
Then he wins the television title. I'm like, oh my god, he's getting there. Then he wins the U.S. championship. Wow, he's getting there.
A Canadian's
Finally,
not a
he
heart
wins the
is
title.
being successful.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
But
They
then,
build these guys up correctly. You don't have the Sheamus, he's the champion in 6 months.
yeah.
I like
Yeah.
Sheamus.
You lovable fella. I don't know if you guys saw the
Celtic
latest.
teddy bear. I know this is meant to be about Chris Benoit. It's only fair to mention Nancy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, who have little to no wrestling background, they go, well, Chris Benoit is the guy who killed his wife and child.
Mhm.
But Nancy Benoit, she spent well over a decade in the wrestling industry. She did tons for the business, especially in terms of the valet. She was more than a Miss Elizabeth. I'd say she was the precursor to Francine.
I would say so because when she first appeared on the scene, going back, looking through different torrents and stuff that the WWE has released since they've bought the WCW library and such throughout the years and old VHSs and stuff. She was a big deal when she came on the scene in the NWA in the late 80s, in about 88, 89. Like, she was, their answer to, I guess, Sherry Martel, I would imagine. It's kind of the Queen heel type persona.
That's what Crockett was going for when he booked her.
Yep, exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. When they booked her with originally with the Team of Doom, which was Ron Simmons and Butch Reed in bondage gear. Look that up.
She was labeled as a Satanist.
Yes.
Who was woman?
Woman was Nancy.
She was woman.
Yeah,
She was woman.
Yeah.
She was woman, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
on the right page then.
Yep. And it was just one of those things, and the worst part about it, I don't think, was Simmons and Reed in the bondage gear. It was Kevin Nash as a 7-foot tall Nitron. That was his name, Nitron. With the yeah,
The Shockmaster.
with
Making the Yeti look credible.
he was essentially supposed to be, I think, like a 7-foot tall T-1000 is what he was, because he spoke with an Austrian accent in the promos and everything. It was just like,
And now you see why Kevin Nash is so protective of his spots.
Back to woman.
yes,
Back to woman.
She was all over the independents too in the 90s and that stuff. She was in ECW and then out of ECW and in ECW again with the Sandman and then out again and then WCW with the Horsemen, and that's where they met with Chris and stuff like that, and then kind of faded away after 97, early 98 in WCW. They didn't really use her, so she kind of faded out of the scene, and then she kind of resurfaced in around 04 when Benoit was getting his world title push. They were trying to portray Benoit as kind of, I guess would be like this family man that's pursuing a dream or something like that type thing, so.
And, I mean, the murder-suicide, everybody's reputation got wrecked. The WWE got slandered by CNN. Chris Benoit, the ultimate villain now. Her son Daniel was wrongfully noted by several media outlets to have a disease he didn't have.
Yeah.
And the big thing with Nancy...
That's the big thing. Can you elaborate more on that? Is like what it was? Because I heard it was some sort of genetic disease, and then a few months later they completely... miscredited
I don't
it.
have the name of the disease. I know it ended with an X.
Yeah.
It actually had a fakey sounding name.
Yeah.
No offense to any people who actually do have it, but it was like disease X. But yeah, he didn't have it.
Fragile X syndrome.
Fragile X. Okay, so
Fragile X, there we go.
Yeah.
But he didn't have it.
No.
And all these media outlets had gone out to saying that he was getting steroid injections because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, we never did find out why he was being injected with steroids.
No.
Just other than that, he was a small kid. But and Nancy herself, Hustler magazine put out nude photographs of her after her death.
Yeah.
Like this.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's incredibly disrespectful. And the thing is, the family took legal action against them, and they still published the pictures.
Yep.
It was absolutely tasteless.
Mm-hmm.
It was just poor, not just poor timing, because they were never going to put those pictures out until something scandalous happened, right?
Yeah.
And it's just there were. I know it goes without saying there were no winners in this, but there were a lot of damaged parties in this event.
All
Would
big
you
time.
guys argue that that's the catalyst for this PG era?
I would say so. Yeah, I would definitely say so. That it was the first step towards the PG era and that stuff. Because if you take a look at the stuff from 07, immediately after the night that this whole incident had went down, it was a WWE pay-per-view night. It was the Night of Champions Vengeance card
Oh,
of that
He
year.
had to wrestle MVP on that night.
No. It was a ECW title match with
CM
Punk.
CM Punk.
Yeah, I
Was
think.
it? Okay.
Yeah, and that was the thing, is that he missed, and so John Morrison, who was then Johnny Nitro, had to be slotted in under the pretense that he was the alternate in case one of the participants could not make it for whatever reason. And so they had the match between Morrison and Punk, and arguably that match, stole the show.
it made Morrison.
Yeah, it made Morrison big time because nobody, watched ECW at the time or whatever because of the fact that it was just a WWE ECW.
This
It's
was
watered
the
down.
brand that had Bobby Lashley versus Vince McMahon. In
Yes.
the fight.
Yeah,
So
and this is also the brand that. Well, we can get into this in a later where wrestling went wrong, but in fact, we will probably in around December
I'm
time
waiting
and
to
that
see
stuff.
if you're gonna
But
say it, because if you say put Bob Holly in the main event, I'll sock you, because I actually liked him.
no,
He's-
I was going to say that it was the brand that tried to put more hardcore gimmicks into the WWE at the time. Like you had Kevin Thorne with Ariel, and that was a vampirist
I love
gimmick.
The vampires, man.
But-
You
Yeah,
did
that-
love the
that-
vampires. I remember that.
That was
You
a
can speak about that.
that
when and I know we're going completely off tangent, but when Ariel gave Joey Styles a lap dance, just kind of goes up there, gives her a lap dance. He's like, and all he's like is Taz, she's got fangs, Taz, and
You're making me want to pop in my copy of this December to Dismember after this
I
podcast.
actually just added Shelly Martinez to my Twitter.
But anyway, but you can't argue that gimmick was aimed for young adults, not kids.
Yeah, no, it's definitely aimed for the 18 to 24.
Yeah, 18 to 24 and stuff like that. And then after that incident, you quickly see stuff change over, just kind of lighten out. You progress from that to, what's the latest gimmicks on Raw? Like, Sin Cara. Not really a fearful gimmick. He's just a Mexican luchador that believes in honor and stuff.
Schoolyard bully once again going to
I
Sheamus.
feel like it's almost like comic books. Like
Yeah.
they're taking the design of comic books. Every single month, there's a new villain on the street for Cena to take down. Like this month, it's a guy who smokes and a guy who harasses the fans, and then Super Cena's gonna take him out. And then next month, it's another
What's up?
villain and another villain, and I think that's just the design they're going for.
Yeah. What's up?
I can't say, well, of course, indirectly, yes, but directly, I cannot possibly say that this is, directly because of the Benoit Nancy murders. This is directly because of the steroid scandal, the punch-drunk syndrome, the concussions, all being on the rise.
The last time they did have a steroid scandal, it actually led to the Attitude Era. It led to guys
Yep.
like Shawn Michaels getting pushed.
Yeah,
Smaller
exactly.
Guys like
The
that.
Attitude Era was quite a ways after that. The steroid scandal was in 93, and Attitude didn't kick in until late 98.
My
No,
opinion is
late
that-
97 is more like it, but
Late 97.
carry on.
My opinion is that they changed to a PG model when our friend Linda McMahon decided to run for governor.
Ding, ding, ding.
There we go. That was, but you don't think that it was a domino effect? Like I think it was a domino effect where this happened and this was kind of led to, like this is something that probably WWE was playing with after the situation. And it's like, okay, we're a little too out of our element now, so maybe we should try and tone it down a bit.
No, they were never in their element, and they made the most money that they've ever made when they're a little edgy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is, no matter what the reason why, the result of their actions has caused WWE stock to plummet
Mm.
to the point where now I'm in a position where I can buy 5,000 shares, but I would not dare because that money's not coming back anytime.
No,
They
exactly.
cut their dividends as well.
Yeah, that was slashing the dividends is a big issue, but over the course of the last 3 months, they've just been slipping and slipping.
Yeah.
And slipping.
Yeah. Immediately after the crime, the tragedy, whatever you want to call it, WWE went into full effect in erasing every record of Benoit, like his, the the fictional, obviously, win-loss record because of pro wrestling and the nature of it, but also his appearance on WWE DVDs, and they stopped selling his Hard Knocks biography on DVD.
All his toys.
Merchandise, T-shirts, toys, you name it. Uh, Personally, looking back on it 3 or 4 years later, is it? Do you feel it was the right thing to do, or were they really hasty in some aspects of it?
Well, you were just saying earlier that when it happened, you were getting ripped on by everybody, right? Because
Right.
you were a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
So just to know the amount of heat you took, can
Yeah.
you imagine the amount of heat Vince McMahon took?
Oh yeah, big
and
time,
the rest of the company.
big
So,
time.
whether it's the right or wrong thing, I don't know, but it's the smart thing.
Yeah, definitely.
That's hard to add on. That's pretty much it. It's a business decision.
Yeah, yeah. But
Um,
now
we
look,
aren't the only ones doing it though. Pro Wrestling Insider, which have their own Hall of Fame class, they had inducted Benoit, I believe, in 2003.
yeah,
And they actually had a recall vote for Benoit. I can actually grab the number now because I was talking with Nitro about this earlier.
yeah,
But you needed a majority vote of, I believe, 70%. See, where is this? Where's the note here? You need a majority vote of 60% to have him removed from their Hall of Fame class.
hmm
And the recall was supported by 53.6%. 6% shy of completely removing him from wrestling history. This was, Wrestling Observer, not Pro Wrestling
Yeah.
Insider.
yeah,
But that's one of those ones where I don't know. I don't know if, like, with the WWE, they had to distance himself. He was under contract to them when he committed these acts. The Wrestling Observer, not so much.
He was under contract. The whole company was getting blasted on the big national news networks
Not to mention CNN was slapping together those interviews and
with Mark Miro.
I
yeah,
was just shocked, and WWE was floored when they actually tried slandering John Cena, and they actually put up the Raw interview to show that CNN was slandering him. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know why
yeah.
there was no lawsuit.
Yeah.
for that, because
And he-
charges should have been pressed.
And you know what? I'm not a particular Cena fan, but watching that, I had to give him a slap on the back after because man, he put up with a lot of crap that CNN was giving. He was on Nancy Grace as a guest shortly after, and
Poor guy.
that lack of a better term, yeah,
You're
just as
telling you.
stupid.
The great thing about Nancy Grace is the victim is always right.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like,
Yeah.
but she really didn't do her homework. I remember watching that show. She must have just been filled in on what pro wrestling was probably 15 minutes before going on air. And of course, if you've seen her meltdown on YouTube and that stuff, Nancy Grace knows her stuff. She's done her research, and just she didn't know anything. She couldn't find her way out of a paper bag in that interview with Cena. Cena had to lead her through it for the first bit of it. Like Cena was holding her hand through, and he said publicly after, he's like, it was like working a match with the most green rookie you could think of in the history of the sport.
That's what he said?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, something like that, something along those lines. When who was it? I think it was either No DQ. It wasn't No DQ. It was somebody else larger at the time had asked him about it. It was one of the local papers that WWE, creates media availability with their guys in every town they go to, right? So I think it was like either in like Dallas or San Antonio or so. It was someplace in Texas, but yeah, it's just saying that he had to really lead her through the first 15 minutes of that interview to get anything going, and then all of a sudden she just started unloading on him.
Well, I don't know if you guys have heard it. I do have a clip here. I do have a clip here if you guys do want to hear it.
Sure.
This was actually the unedited one that the WWE had posted in response, and I'll reflect afterwards what they had actually said, or what they had actually aired.
Yeah.
And I think one of WWE is under the microscope right now.
Of course, as is all of sport.
A lot of talk about steroid use,
Yeah.
drug use. Have you ever used steroids?
Absolutely not. And this is
Back in bodybuilding days,
this is a
football days.
This is a crazy question, and it's something that it's tough to answer just because of the way society is now, the way people conceive things, because performance-enhancing drugs have got the spotlight, and it's a hot thing to talk about. Anytime you see any athlete in any athletic venture, it could be the PGA Tour, achieve physical greatness, something that is beyond the norm, even for a top-tier athlete. If top-tier athletes are rushing for 1,000 yards and somebody comes out and starts running people over and rushing for 2,000, it's not athletic achievement anymore, and that's something that really gets me. It's he or she is on performance-enhancing drugs. And it's only because that certain athletes have gotten themselves into certain situations where automatically the finger is pointed at somebody. Oh, they're on performance-enhancing drugs. My answer to that question, have you ever used steroids, is the only thing I can say. I can't tell you that I haven't, but you'll never be able to prove that I have. Because each one of you out there has an opinion on how I carry myself. And I can take 1,000,000 tests. I've been tested for drugs since I've been 17 years old. I can take 1,000,000 tests. I can pass every one of them. As soon as I pass it, there's some other guy on the other end going, oh, there's masking agents, there's this, there's that. I know the arguments because I've been in the situation. This is a subject that's very, very near and dear to me, only because since I was a very small child, I've worked my ass off to get to where I'm at. And it sucks to be able to have to deal with people saying that I rely on a crutch.
There we go.
Yeah.
CNN basically, they cut it so that there was the question of, do you take performance-enhancing drugs? And the response that they used...
John Cena is a WWE superstar, now recovering from an injury in the ring. He doesn't like being asked if he has used steroids.
This is a crazy question, and it's something that it's tough to answer just because of the way society is now, the way people conceive things, because performance-enhancing drugs have got the spotlight, and it's a hot thing to talk about. I can't tell you that I haven't, but you'll never be able to prove that I have.
Never.
Wow.
And they just slapped that all over.
Yeah.
CNN aired it, Fox aired it, I can't remember a couple of their, Turner News aired it.
Yeah.
And then the WWE just flat out puts this clip on their website.
Yeah.
Showing, because they had their own camera in the back.
Yes.
And just CNN never even issued an apology. They never retracted the interview. They absolutely just left it the way it is. And I'm amazed that nobody pressed any sort of legal action against CNN for this.
CNN was ripping off HBO because HBO tried the same thing with Vince McMahon a few years earlier. This is right after Roddy Piper and Old Free had to sit down and that stuff.
Piper actually lost his job because of his comments on...
Yep.
Yeah.
And the thing is that they doctored Vince's rebuttal to be really, shall I say, what's the exact word? Shaky, slanderous, whatever, and this, it was such a hack job that when you watch the raw footage of it and the actual finished piece, that are both on YouTube as well, like everything is nowadays, that you can tell that, man, people are getting paid money to do that, and they're getting a healthy sum of cash to do that. Just absolutely butcher the truth, right? So whether it is the truth or not, who's to say? But these guys are people that are out entertaining us. So, you got to kind of take it as, partly valid, because we're not out there, they are. And so they know the life we don't. And, it's just one of those things, right? But just don't... My big issue is don't, slander it and cut it up and put words in people's mouths that they didn't say and everything like that, But that's the sensationalization of, television news, right? So,
as much as I don't like bringing them up, Family Guy did it. Remember there was the episode where Lois starts working for Fox and they want her to prove that Michael Moore is gay. So she goes and finds out that, or she thinks anyway, she sees Michael Moore enter a house, and then after a little while later, Rush Limbaugh leave, buttoning up his shirt. And she goes, "Oh my God, he is gay!" And they look at the footage of Rush Limbaugh leaving Michael Moore's house, and like, well, that proves it. Michael Moore is definitely not gay. Rush Limbaugh is one of us. We have absolutely no need to trash ourselves. So I mean, like they did it already, but it's the problem is we don't have it anymore. But in terms of news and actual editorialism, we need somebody to be objective. At this point, all it is bias. It's opinion, to the point where Perez Hilton has the same type of credibility as the New York Times.
Right.
You know, and no, it should not be that way.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I like Philip DeFranco, if I tune into news, where I expect the news. If I want an opinion-based journalism, I go for opinion-based journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, right now, those lines have blurred so much to the point where it's harming everybody. And it's one of those things, it's educating people, but at the same time, educating them in the wrong direction.
And why do you think so many people flock to the internet? Why do you think YouTube made as much money as it did? Because of that.
Yeah, but is that good? Is that good for society to trick these people into thinking? It's adding smug. I get into arguments with people over organic food all the time because they think, oh, well, you're a horrible person for giving this baby food to your child. You should be getting organic.
Yeah.
No, you should be cooking a sweet potato and mashing it and giving that to your child because it's actual food. You know, and the argument over organic is, you know, once the wind shifts and the chemicals from that farm over west come with the topsoil onto that farm in the east, there's no such thing as organic.
And everybody's listening in and that stuff, and there was, you know, thinking about what I was saying earlier and that stuff, everybody was saying, well, isn't Kellen Nitro a television editor by trade and that stuff? And yeah, I am, but I look at it along the lines as a dramatic television editor does right now. I've worked news. I've worked in a newsroom before for, albeit a limited amount of time, but enough to get a feel for it. And I don't physically right now see myself within the next few years possibly going back into a newsroom. But, you know, if the opportunity is there, of course I'm going to take it. But it's just, you know, my views are that yeah, they do sensationalize, and this is what happens, you know. It's weird. I'm almost doing an expose on the news industry as we're doing this. It's like, yeah, but
that's one of those things. It's, it's a bit of a metaphor, but we as pro wrestling fans have been fed the 6'6", 260-pound, large-ass guys who talk but can't wrestle.
Exactly.
And Benoit was one of those, you know, 5'10" guys, 205 pounds, who made you actually, you know, think for yourself.
Yeah.
And come to your own conclusions and trade tapes and instead of wanting this, you know, actually shout, or instead of being told what you want, telling the company what you want.
Yeah.
Benoit was, in a way, showing us this sort of ability we have as consumers and as people. Yeah. And that's why a conversation over his career can go in these different branches.
Yeah, it's a very controversial thing and that stuff. Do you think, you know, as we're I'm not sure.
I can hear you shaking your head going, what the hell did just happen? I can hear you.
What? What?
Well, I guess
what are you talking about?
Well, no, I was just going to ask a question of everybody, but whatever. But I was just going to say that, do you think in a few years' time that WWE, you know, obviously not now, but maybe 5-10 years down the road or something like that, that we'll see a Blu-ray or a DVD kind of explaining the whole Benoit situation from the WWE?
I don't think that will ever happen. They just kind of eliminated Benoit. I don't think he'll, you know, it's kind of history now. hardcore wrestling fans remember Benoit, but for new fans, there'll be no mention of Benoit just because, he did kill his family. He did create the murder-suicide. So, there's nothing to talk about anymore.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that too. I don't think they're gonna publish anything.
Yeah.
They've gone a couple steps over the last few years now that the heat's kind of died down on it. Over this year, 2011, we have started to see Benoit on WWE Classics.
Yes.
But they remove any mention of his name. They remove any commentary involving him. At one point, I was watching one that, and Nitro and I were actually talking this over coffee earlier today. But I had watched one where they had censored out the Crippler. So it was a match, and it was It's Benoit.
Yeah, it wasn't even a decent edit either. I was just talking with Jimmy the Freak earlier today too, as I was watching WWE Vintage Collection a few weeks ago, and they were doing the best of WCW Saturday Night for a couple of weeks, and they had a good match on between Brian Pillman and Eddie Guerrero from, I want to say, November of '95 it was, or something like that, on Nitro, or on Saturday night, I should say, that they showed on Vintage Collection. And then there was a run-in, and Benoit came in on the run-in as well, and there was no mention of him running in and that stuff. It just came in and he's just started putting the boots to Guerrero and stuff like that. And then at the end, you hear the commentator, I think it was either Chevalier or Bischoff, I can't remember who it was, but you hear the commentator say, yes, the Four Horsemen with Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, and Brian Pillman, just after this giant pause, right? Like, they just completely, took Benoit's name out of it. So
they're gonna baby step it. We might, at a point, actually, be able to have a normal match air with the normal commentary. Nothing really plugging them. We're not going to see the Mania matches ever again.
No.
But we might see, him and Mongo McMichael against
Yeah.
Scott Norton and...
And isn't that a shame, because he main evented WrestleMania 20, a Hallmark WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Sad deal.
Ken just summed it up.
Yeah. It
The sigh
is.
of wrestling fans all over the world.
Exactly. So.
With that, guys, I'm not too sure there's anything else really to add.
Nope. I got nothing to add, so.
On behalf of Kel Nitro, Ken the Redhead Bulldog, Striker, X-Force, Team
Power Ranger.
Striker
on Saturday Night Siffy, and Cal, who no longer requires a name because he's sticking with Cal, and he's tired of the Efornia jokes.
the man without the will of having a moniker.
Yeah, way to play along on the internet, jerk. I'm Jimmy the Freak. This has been W4, Where Wrestling Went Wrong. And actually, I think this is the first time we've done a Where Wrestling Went Wrong that actually discussed where wrestling went wrong. We keep discussing the things where it was back when it was right. But thanks everybody for...
We got some topics, though, coming up in the next few months, guys, that are going to blow your mind here and that stuff. We got a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah.
As he put it.
Alright, guys, so stay tuned to freakinitro.com. And, yeah, if you're on any of the video sites listening to us that actually have a like button or stars or thumbs up, just please, we're insecure. It feeds our egos. It ensures we do it again.
I'd like to meet a woman off this, so, you know my Facebook.
And remember that the wrestling theme